Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video. Hope you guys are doing well. Today, we're back with the third and final installment in the Encyclopedias, this time doing Resto Shaman. So let's jump straight into it. Now, this is, in terms of talents, I've already covered the Restoman spec in another video. This is going to be the default Resto Shaman spec that I expect to see people running in things like dungeons, in heroics, in raids, all that good stuff. So yeah, let's get into it. So, Spark of Life increases your healing done by 6%, your healing received by 15%. Tidal Focus reduces the mana cost of your spells. Resurgent, while Water Shield is active, you recover mana from direct healing spells from critting. Totemic Focus reduces the mana cost of your totems and increases your duration by 40%. This is amazing. Like, you just put them down once and they last for every fight. It's great. Again, this is a bit of a flex spot. You can run Ancestral Resolve. You can even run Nature's Guardian for a little bit more of a defensive setup. For me, I'm going to run this just because I'm lazy and I really like it. Focus Insight. After casting any shock spell, your next heal's mana cost is reduced by 75% of the shock. And its healing effectiveness is increased by 30%. I tend to only use this for Healing Rain. Or if I need to like spam chain heals. But very rarely am I going to actively use this for anything. I tend to try and keep Flame Shock up just for a little bit of residual damage on the boss anyway. So this just gets naturally consumed. But you can consume it with Healing Rain, which is amazing. Ancestral Healing. Your critical heals reduce physical damage taken by 10% for 15 seconds. Amazing. And heals you cast increase allies' maximum health by 10% of the amount healed, up to a maximum of 10% of their health. Now, the reason why I love Healing Rain so much is because it can apply both. If I crit, which of course now I'm not going to crit, there we go, I crit and I have both buffs, which is kind of nuts. You then compare that with the fact that we can buff it with Focused Insight, it's pretty nice. Nature Swiftness, I think every healer should just have, it's so core. Nature's Blessing increases the effectiveness of your direct heals on Earth-shielded targets by 18%. Now, I'll talk more about glyphs in a second, but combined with the Earth Shield glyph, you can actually make it a hell of a tank healer with this spec as well. Soothing Rains increases the residual healing of your Healing Stream Totem and Healing Rain, so, you know, pretty nice. Improved Cleanse Spirit, just take it. For the 1 point it costs, just take it. It looks like if you have another healer that can magic dispel, you don't need to take this. It's just not worth not having it. So just have it. Ancestral Awakening. When you critically heal with a spirit, single target direct heal, you summon an Ancestral Spirit to aid you, instantly healing the lowest percentage health friendly party or target member, raid target member, within 40 yards for 30% of the amount healed. This is amazing because it's smart healing, so it will never, almost never be over healing, which is amazing. But we don't really stack crit early on, so you're not going to see a lot of value out of this, but you will see some. Mana Tide Totem is pretty weak. They nerf things like Mana Tide, Innovate, that sort of thing in Cataclysm, but it still works. Spirit Link Totem. The one thing I will say about this, and I'll talk more about it later on in the video, but don't overthink Spirit Link Totem. First of all, definitely take it. It's 1 point for an insane cooldown. You don't need to make hero plays with this. It's only on a 3-minute cooldown. Some bosses you're going to get this off 2-3 times. You know, just use it. It's a 10% damage reduction. Evens out the health of people. No one's going to die during this. It's a really, really underused cooldown. Blessing the Eternals grants an 80% chance to trigger your additional 80% chance to trigger your Earth Living heal over time effects when you heal an ally who is below 35% health. So if someone's low health, you're just going to be able to instantly apply that heal. Obviously, our Mastery then increases the potency of your healing spells up to 44%, currently in my gear, based on the current health level of your target. At 30%, this is most effective. So, you know, between this and that talent, we're going to be able to do a big heal, apply Earth Living, they're going to be nice and healthy. Tidal Waves, when you cast Chain Heal or Riptide, you gain the Tidal Waves effect, reduces the cast time of your Healing Wave, greater Healing Wave spells by 30%, and the critical effect chance of your Healing Surge by 30% as well. And then Riptide is just amazing. So, yeah, that's going to be our Resto tree. Then we're going to take Acuity just for a little bit of free crit. 2 points in elemental weapons for the increased benefit of Earth Living Weapon and the Unleash elements. And then improved shields just for a little bit more mana regeneration from Water Shield, and increases the healing done by our Earth Shield as well. So in terms of glyphs then, Riptide's going to be the important one here. We're going to use it a lot, and the reason we want Riptide is because we can put it on a couple of people. It's only a 6-second cooldown, but it lasts for 22 seconds. We can put it on a couple of people before big damage is coming in. Aside from the fact they're going to have an initial hot just for a couple of seconds after the damage as well, we can then go through each person, chain heal them, and consume the Riptide to gain a big chain heal on multiple people. So really like this, constantly going to be using it. Earth Living Weapon then is one that is really, really nice. It's probably less effective in this build than the Restonement build. If you're using Healing Rain a lot, this gains a lot of value. But it is one that can be swapped out. So can Water Shield. Increases the passive mana regeneration of your Water Shield spell by 50%. So if you're not struggling for mana, this can be swapped quite easily to things like Earth Shield, which just increases your healing on the tank. You can probably just put this on the tank and forget about him. If you're struggling for mana, but you do need to cover the tank a little bit more, swapping Earth Living Weapon for Earth Shield is also an option. Now, in terms of our major glyphs, Resto actually has some choices to make. So let's go through them. Chain Heal is going to be our first one. Increases the healing done by your Chain Heal spells to targets beyond the first by 15%, but decreases the initial amount. So rather than it getting noticeably weaker, it's going to just be roughly equal to people, but it's not going to heal the first person for so much. I actually like this because I find that, this can overheal quite a lot on the first person, and then the lowest person does minimal. So if you are using Chain Heal a lot, I would recommend this glyph. Again, for things like dungeons, you probably won't use it very much. You have the option of Healing Stream Totem, being able to bring the resistances. If no one else is bringing this, I would really recommend you bring this. Healing Wave is going to be your spammable, right? With a decent amount of spirit, or even a starting amount of spirit, you're going to be able to spam Healing Wave quite easily, and 20% of that healing is also going to be duplicated onto you. Just keeps you nice and healthy during fights as well. So Healing Wave, not one to be underestimated. Stoneclaw Totem gives you a defensive, so gives you a big shield, 20-second cooldown, and you can just put this down and kind of forget about your own health for a second. So you have a couple of different options there. For me personally, I'm always going to be running Healing Stream Totem. I think the resistances are just too nice to have as a quality of life thing. I will always then... In raids, I will almost always be running Chain Heal. And then, Healing Wave or Stoneclaw Totem, they kind of do similar things. Obviously, if you're spamming Healing Wave, it just keeps you safe. If you need to put down a Stoneclaw Totem, it's because you need to be safe. So I'm going to start with Healing Wave, and I would use Stoneclaw as and when needed. You have got Totemic Recall if you are doing heroics and just want to be able to pick your totems up and get a lot of your mana back, but you shouldn't need it. The only minor glyph I would say is mandatory is Renewed Life, just so you never forget that you've not got Ankh, and you can just use it whenever. So, yeah, that's my talents and glyphs for Resto. Now, in terms of stat weights, I'm going to talk through what each stat does for us, and then talk through what my priority would be for different things. Obviously, Intellect is just going to give us spell power, a little bit more mana, and natural spell crit. Spirit is going to give us increased mana regen, which is, pretty key. Haste is going to do two things for us. First of all, it's just going to increase the casting speed of all of our spells, which is really nice. Secondly, then, at different haste breakpoints, we are also going to be able to get more ticks of certain things. So, as an example, early on, you're going to be able to get an increased tick of Earth Living Weapon, Riptide, and Healing Rain, just for having like 700 haste or something. I will talk more about the haste breakpoints later on. But yeah, so you're going to basically be wanting to hit certain breakpoints with haste, and then any extra is just a bonus. Crit, we've already talked about crit in a couple of different places. Resurgence gives us mana back from critting. Ancestral Awakening gives us increased raid healing from crits. Crit isn't a dead stat to us, but it's just not the best stat for us either. Mastery then is going to increase the potency of heals by up to a decent amount, based on the current health level of the targets. Now, this is most effective at 30% health. So, you know, if you're trying to snipe raid heals or you're progressing, Mastery is amazing. Someone stands in the mechanic, boom, Riptide, just full health. Or, you know, a big mechanic comes in, everyone's half health. You're going to be able to just heal and you'll just start topping people because of your Mastery. So in terms of the stat priority for me, it goes intellect, so item level basically. Spirit until you are comfortable with your mana. I like to go a little bit OTT with spirit just because I never like worrying about my mana too much. So it is something that I am conscious about and I do want to make sure. I will also be playing a lot of Rest Omen and I want enough spirit to hit the hit cap. So if you are playing Rest Omen, you need enough spirit to be able to hit the hit cap 17% as well. And then I'm going to be going for as high of a haste breakpoint as I can. So if I show you this table, which I've stolen from Tory Veins, you can see the different haste ratings that you need. So the first haste rating is the 12.5% one. That gives you 1 extra tick on Earth Living Weapon, 1 extra tick on Riptide, 1 extra tick on Healing Rain. The second haste cap, which is the 21.4% one, gives you another tick on Riptide as on top of. So you're going to want to hit the highest one you can. Now, we're almost always going to have the 5% spell haste raid buff because we bring it. We're probably never going to get Dark Intent, and I'll talk more about racials later on, but Goblin is certainly an option. But so I'm going to be aiming for around 2,000 haste personally, and then I'll be worried about trying to... So it's going to be as much spirit as I can get with 2,000 haste, and then it's going to be a kind of middle ground of Mastery, crit, and maybe a little bit more haste if I happen to pick it up. But mainly Mastery and crit after that, just to balance stats. I don't want like loads of one and none of the other, just somewhere in between. So in terms of stat weights, that's what I'll be going for. It changes a little bit with... It really doesn't actually. With the Rest Omen spec, I would prioritize crit just ever so slightly a little bit higher. Crit's obviously double the damage of our spells or close to it. Gives us more mana back. Pretty nice. But we're still going to be wanting them that haste first anyway. So yeah, that's my stat weights. Now, speaking of stat weights as well as everything else, let's get into racials. Now, Orc brings Blood Fury, increasing your spell power by a decent amount on a 2-minute cooldown. And aside from that, it doesn't really bring you anything else in PvE. In PvP, it has Hardiness, which reduces the duration of stun effects. So for PvP, for me, Orc just wins, just clear. But in PvE, if you are playing Enhancement or Resto or Elemental alongside your Resto, then for me, I'm going to focus on making sure I have the best DPS racials, and Resto can just have whatever. If you are playing a double Resto, then we should start looking at other racials. So in terms of the other racials then, Torrent gives us War Stomp, gives us a 2-minute cooldown stun that is like 3 seconds, 2 seconds, something like that duration. AoE, it's okay, the maximum health is okay, but it's never really going to be the right spec or the right choice for us as a Shaman. Troll then gives us Berserking. Now, this can temporarily push us over things like the next haste breakpoint, which is nice every now and again, as well as just giving us really, really high amounts of haste for a short period of time. Pretty nice, but we don't get much benefit out of the rest of the kit as a Resto Shaman. Now, Goblin. This is what I would be if I was playing that character as Resto main spec, and Resto is the most important thing. I would be a Goblin. Gives us 1% just passive haste, which if I bring back up our sheet here, can be like 150 haste worth. You know, that doesn't sound a lot, but early on in the expansion, that's going to be amazing. And even later on the expansion where the haste caps are, you know, becoming bigger and bigger, Goblin does help kind of get through that gap a little bit. So, yeah, haste increase is definitely going to be something. Gives us a little bit of mobility, which is nice as well. So yeah, I would probably be a Goblin if I was Resto, just main spec on a character. Again, in terms of Alliance, you have Draenei, Space Goats. Increases their... Well, you have a heal you can use on people. Yeah, I mean, sure. And it's going to give yourself 1% hit. If you're playing Restonement for Alliance, this is probably the best option. In fairness, if you're playing Alliance, this is just the best option in general, I think. Dwarf, you gain Stone Form as a defensive, is probably the only thing I could say as a Dwarf Shaman, but yeah, I mean, you're not going to get much benefit from being Dwarf, unfortunately. Now, let's talk best in slot professions. Resto Shami has it easy in that one of your professions are just immediately decided for you. Tailoring is BIS. As you can see by this table, again, I've stolen from Tory Veins because I can. 120 in or 120 spirit, average gain throughout the fight, and provides you a leg enchant, which is really nice. I would probably go for the intellect here over the spirit personally, but you could go for either and you would still gain a lot of value. But you just gain more from that than anything else. This is based on having the epic gems from Dragon Soul, which we won't have, so you're only going to gain 80 intellect from blacksmithing as well. So all of the rest really provides you an equal benefit, so it kind of depends what you want. Alchemy provides you with a nice trinket option. Engineering provides you with the cogwheel. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only two that really bring you anything major in terms of BOEs. Jewel crafting brings you like a 3, 4, 6 trinket. For me personally, I'm going to be going engineering. Synapse Springs is going to be my kind of oh shit button. When things go bad, Synapse Springs, let's just heal a little bit more for a little while. It's on a pretty short cooldown, which is nice. And it provides access to the 359 helmet, which is going to help me hit some of them haste ratings early on. So yeah, in general, I'm going to be going tailoring and engineering. Now, before I get into things like our rotation or anything like that, I'm going to talk briefly around spells and what we have as part of our kit. So Bind Elemental is like a banish just for elementals, similar to Warlock. We're not going to use this very much in Cataclysm, but it's nice that we have it. We have 3 versions of preset totems. However, I'm pretty much always going to drop the same 4 totems, so I only ever use one of these. Chain Lightning can be nice if you're in Heroics and you want to throw out a little bit of extra DPS. Earth Shock we're kind of never going to use, really. You can use it if you need to apply the debuff, but other people can bring that, and we're going to be trying to just maintain Flame Shock. Earthbind's pretty nice if you need to ever kite or slow things. It's a nice AoE pulse slow. It's like a freezing trap. Fire Elemental Totem. Now, this is one that I really like because we do run Totemic Focus. Fire Elemental Totem lasts for 2.8 minutes, nearly 3-minute Fire Elemental Totem, and we can snapshot it. That's right. So I actually use this a lot. I will use this on every boss as a Resto Shaman, and almost 3 minutes of Fire Rallies. That's going to do a lot of damage over the course of a fight. People really underestimate how much damage Resto Shamans can just passively bring to a fight. Got really excited about that. Fire Nova, it's pretty nice in Heroics. You would need like at least 2 Flame Shocks to start making it really worth, but if you wanted to do a little bit of damage, it's not too bad. Flame Shock then obviously just applies the dot. We're going to be using this a lot to trigger Focused Insight. Frost Shock, nice little slow if you need it. Hex is like a polymorph that Shamies get for humanoids and beasts. Lava Burst then is part of our, like if you're actually trying to do DPS, Lava Burst is worth using. If you're playing Restonement, it doesn't give you any mana back, so we probably won't be using it. We'll just be focusing on Lightning Bolt. Magma Totem is good for AoE situations. If you are in Heroics, just dropping a Magma Totem in a pack can do a decent amount of just passive damage. Purge, there are some bosses in tier 11 that need to be purged, so having this accessible is good. You're one of the few healers that bring it. You are a priest, I believe, so having it accessible is nice. Searing Totem on a boss, if you have the Flame Tongue buff from someone else, like a mage, Searing Totem can just like passively hit the boss, which is pretty nice. Obviously, we want to be using Fire Elemental before that. Spirit Walker's Grace is amazing because Riptide and Unleash Elements, which I'll talk more about later, is both instant. You can do a lot of your rotation just on the move. So you can see I'm running around, I unleash elements, pop another Riptide, I've got Nature Swiftness there. I've got quite a lot where I can cast on the move already. Being able to just add 15 seconds of just free casting is really, really nice. Stoneclaw Totem, as I mentioned in glyphs earlier, if you do happen to run the Stoneclaw glyph, then you have it as a defensive option. And Wind Shear, 15-second cooldown. This is a spell and it can miss. So if you are not spell hit capped, then you can miss with this cast. Enhancement, we get Astral Recall, which is a nice little quick Hearthstone. Bloodlust, we are one of 3 classes to bring Bloodlust. Shamans, Mages, and BM Hunters. So, healers are going to be probably forced into the Bloodlust role for quite a lot of the expansion. Earth Elemental Totem, I've talked about this in the other ones as well. If this doesn't negatively impact your raid, in that it's going to taunt something it shouldn't, or it's just going to be in the way, then you should definitely use this. Just does a little bit more residual damage. Again, if you're not required to bring any of the Earth Totem buffs, then Earth Elemental Totem is pretty nice. Popping both of these at the start of a fight, you can do a surprising amount of damage. Elemental Resistance Totem we never bring because we have Healing Stream Totem with a glyph. Far Sight is pretty nice. It just allows us to, view somewhere far away. You can see, I'm up there. Flame Tongue provides the same buff as Mages and currently stacks with Totemic Wrath or Demonic Pact. It shouldn't, but it currently does. Keep that in mind. In terms of our imbuements, we have Flame Tongue Weapon, we have Frostband and all that. We are only ever going to be using Earth Living, so just these aren't ever relevant. Flame Tongue's good if you're going to solo stuff and you're just killing stuff out in the world and you're staying resto for whatever reason. But yeah, otherwise just be Earth Living. Ghost Wolf then, if you wanted to go down and get Ancestral Swiftness, you could drop 2 points in Acuity or 2 points in your resto tree and pick up Ancestral Swiftness. Reduces the cooldown, the cast time down to 1 second, to instant, sorry, and increases the movement speed of it. But you can use this indoors now, so make sure you're using this if you need to kite or anything like that. Grounding Totem has no major uses in the raid. There's a couple of times where it might be useful, but yeah, generally it's not something you're going to be using very often in the raid. Lightning Shield you'll never use because you're using Water Shield. Primal Strike is just completely irrelevant. We get it given to us as a melee ability early on while leveling. Rockbiter Weapon, again, completely useless. Stone Skin Totem can sometimes stack with Devotion Aura. I haven't actually tested it at the moment. On private service, it always stacks with Devotion Aura, so you get both armor buffs. I don't think it does on Kata Classic, but maybe just keep it in mind, especially if no one's bringing Devotion Aura. It's a pretty nice buff to have. Otherwise, you should be bringing Strength of Earth, just for more damage. Unleash Elements, then, for Earth Living, increases the effect of your Shaman's next direct heal by 30%, and gives them a short little heal, a small little heal. Now, I say direct heal because it doesn't apply to Healing Rain, but it does apply to things like Greater Healing Wave, so if I pop that and then do a Greater Healing Wave on myself, if it crits, non-crit 30k, it's pretty nice. I'm at 100% health, so I'm not benefiting from Mastery. It's pretty nice. Obviously, Water Breathing, Water Walking is whatever. And Wrath of Air Totem, we always want to make sure we have Wrath of Air Totem. If someone else brings the 5% spell haste and there is no Wind Fury bringer, then you can bring Wind Fury, but generally Wrath of Air should be our default. Resto then, we all have the Mass Res, which is nice. Chain Heal is going to jump to 4 total targets. You can consume Riptides with it to do 25% increased healing as well. Obviously, running the glyph takes some of the initial heal away, but spreads that healing more over the people in the group. Cleanse Spirit then is obviously what you're going to talent in the resto tree. Always removes a curse, but with the talent, it also removes 1 harmful magic effect from the target, which is pretty nice. Earth Shield then is basically you're always just going to leave it on the tank. That every time they get hit, they're just going to get healed some. This does a surprising amount of healing for single target, and something that you can kind of just fire and forget. Earth Living Weapon is going to be our primary weapon imbuement, increasing our spell healing. It has a chance to put a hot on people, and we can obviously unleash elements here as well. Greater Healing Wave is going to be our high mana cost, high cast time, high healing heal. Healing Rain is, very expensive, but very efficient if you can get people stood in it for AoE. Healing Stream Totem is my favourite ability in the game. You can see it's just doing this little healing stream dance there, just trying to keep people alive. Healing Surge is going to be your high mana cost, low cast time, medium heal cast. Healing Wave then is going to be your low mana cost, high cast time, medium heal. Obviously with the glyph, it's also healing you for 20% of this as well, which is really nice. Mana Spring Totem, we should never be the person bringing this because we have the enhanced Healing Stream Totem. We really shouldn't be the person ever bringing Mana Spring, but if you need to, it's better to have it than not. Mana Tide Totem's pretty nice. Just make sure that once you've put Mana Tide Totem down, after it's finished, you replace your Healing Stream Totem. Nature Swiftness then increases or makes the next cast instant. Nature cast instant, which is pretty nice. Riptide then is going to be our hot. Applies a couple of different buffs. Nice little ticking thing, and we can consume it with Chain Heal. Spirit Link, as I mentioned earlier, is amazing, and people really undervalue this totem, even just as like a small defensive. So make sure you're getting the most out of that. I'll talk more about that in the rotation stuff later as well. Totem of Tranquil Mind, causing party or raid members to... It's basically Conqueror. We're never going to use this. Just ignore it exists. Totemic Recall, giving you 25% of the mana required to cast each totem back. So, yeah, I mean, it's good for two reasons. Gives you some mana back when you move into the next pack in a heroic, but also it gives you a way to get rid of your totems. So, if I'm drop my totems, then I'm moving over here, I can just Totemic Recall and drag them away. Tremor Totem acts a little bit like a trinket now for fear, sleep, and charm effects, in that you can cast it while affected by them. This is nice in niche situations. It also works for party members, and it's just instant, removes all of these effects, which is nice. And then Water Shield is going to be our default shield, elemental shield. So let's get into rotation, I guess. Now, the reason I did rotation in inverted commas is because there isn't really a rotation. I'm going to talk about the different spells, which situations you're going to use them in, but there isn't really a rotation for healers, in that you're just going to react to the group damage. So let's go through them. Riptide is a very, very, very mana efficient heal that applies a hot on the target that's going to just tick, as well as having an initial good heal as well. And as I've mentioned before, you can consume this with Chain Heal to make your Chain Heal more efficient as well. On a low cooldown and low mana cost, this is something you're going to be using a lot. Healing Wave then is going to be your almost spammable. This is your lightning bolt of resto. It's low mana cost, decent cast time, and you're just going to use this just to keep people topped up, get people back to 100% if they need it. But this is one that, you can spam pretty freely and you're not going to go very quickly at all. Greater Healing Wave then. Now, this is the... I don't even know what to compare this to. It's the Big Daddy. It's a really, really high mana cost, decent cast time, but heals for an absolute ton. So if I just do this, Unleash Elements, and then Greater Healing Wave, 30k non-crits. If I take some damage, 2 seconds here, without killing myself, hopefully. Oh, it took minimal damage. Let's try that again. So I'm going to take some damage here, hopefully not die. Unleash Elements into a Greater Healing Wave. And it's literally just healed me for 70+% of my health because it overhealed as well. So, yeah, the numbers that you're able to do, that was a 71k healing wave there. Greater Healing Wave. This thing is nuts. However, it's very expensive spamming this. You will go if you just spam that. So, what's the next one then? Chain Heal. Chain Heal's a bit of a middle ground. It heals for about the same as Healing Wave on double the mana cost, but you can spread it to multiple people. So it's healing 4 people instead of just 1. And obviously then you buff that with Riptide as well. So Riptide into Chain Heal. 20k single target, and it's obviously weaker on me because of the glyph. That would spread to everyone and do a really, really good amount of healing. Now, Healing Surge. I hate Healing Surge. It's a high mana cost, low cast time heal. It does a decent amount of healing, but you will burn through your mana even quicker than if you were casting greater healing waves. This should be your emergency heal. In terms of everything else your kit offers, then Earth Shield should just be kept on a tank at all times, on ideally the primary tank. So if they're tank swapping, try and refresh it on the new tank every time. Healing Rain is very expensive, but can be efficient if people are all stacked in it, or at least 6 people are stacked in it. If you can get that and it is healing people, then it can be very, very good. Otherwise, I'd be very careful with this one because it's a bait. I love this spell, but it's quite mana intensive. I want to talk more about Spirit Link Totem. Spirit Link Totem is a 10% damage reduction. So even if nothing else, you just put it down, 5 people stacking it, it's a 10% damage reduction for everyone inside it. It also equalizes your health. So as long as you've got one high health person there, you're going to be just fine for the next 10 seconds. And you have to remember, Resto Shaman works best when everyone is at 50%, right? Because everyone is being benefited heavily by mastery. So, if you can drop Spirit Link Totem and then drop a chain heal on everyone, you're just going to top people off in an amazing way. Combine this with either people using their self cooldowns or Healthstones, you can get so much benefit out of this in general. But yeah, so in terms of rotation, there really isn't much to say for Resto Shaman, unfortunately, just because that's the nature of healers, that it doesn't really have a rotation. Now, in terms of macros and weak auras, I don't really have, this is my weak aura that I'm using at the moment, and I could probably export this. I don't even know whose weak aura it is because I don't really use it. But I don't really use a weak aura personally. The only thing that I would want to track through a weak aura is my Earth Shield, just to make sure that it is maintaining on whichever target I want it on, and that it's not about to run out. But aside from that, something to track your totems as well is pretty nice. But in general, I don't really use weak auras that much on healers. In terms of macros, though, I do use macros. All of my heals are done with mouse overs, and you can find much better mouse over macros than this. I just use these because they were quick to type out for me when I was doing beta testing. But yeah, go and have a look for proper healing macros if you want to use mouse over, or something like Voodoo if you want to heal in terms of mouse overs or clicks and things like that. A couple of the macros that I do use that are quite good is Earth Shield. So this is just a cast at focus Earth Shield. So I focus the tank at the start and I just, press this, Earth Shield's him. That's all I need it to do. That's good for things like heroics, or if there's one tank fights in raids, or there's just a main tank. So yeah, I use this quite a lot. Healing Rain, I tend to use an at cursor macro just because then I don't have to aim it at anyone. And the one that people are going to laugh at, but I think is probably my most important one, is a Spirit Link Totem macro that says Spirit Link down, stack up. Now, some people have yells turned off. I have yells turned off. But I know that some people don't, and seeing someone shout Spirit Link down, stack up, they're more inclined to go and actually stack up in it, and that's what I'm trying to encourage. So it's one that I use quite a lot. Other macros you could use is a mouse over weak aura macro, mouse over kick macro, mouse over dispel macro, but I don't tend to need them. So yeah, that's my setup. So this is all I've got for you in terms of the Resto Encyclopedia. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I will get back to them as soon as I can. You guys blew up the Elemental Encyclopedia. I'm hoping you guys will do the same with this one and the Enhanced one, which I've both recorded today, and it's been 2 hours of recording and my throat really hurts. But yeah, so thank you for watching, guys. Much love. I hope you guys are looking forward to Kata. By this point, I will probably have already been out on my weekend with Scott and up staying with my parents and flat hunting. So wish me luck. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Join the Discord for more information. If you've got any things you want to know, things like that, leave them in the comments below. Other than that, thanks for watching and peace.